Hi guys, welcome back to Cooking with Our Part, the show about medieval food and what to do with it today. Again today I'm joined by the Reverend Martino, this time dressed up as his dream job, that's being a steam engineer.
It's slightly cooler today, so I'm wearing a hat.
This is going to be relatively short. I'm making a sauce that is common throughout the Middle Ages, known as Camelyne Sauce, which there will be an article on the website, which I'm currently in the process of writing, about how it developed over time. The first mention I've seen was in the Viandière Taillevent in France, and in the French and English tradition there's fundamentally a sauce made out of either fresh bread or dry bread or toasted bread, depending on the cook, with wine or vinegar and spices. And if you look at Italy, it's not dissimilar, only there's also raisins in it, making a much fruitier sauce.
Okay.
And weirdly enough, in Spain, they also make it fruity, but with pomegranate juice.
Okay.
Which I actually want to try because that sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
This again is the recipe from my master Martino di Como, cooked to several cardinals and I think at least one pope.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is about medieval cookery and about especially the earlier manuscripts. This changes a little bit with the rise of the citizenry. But in the early manuscripts you have the people who cooked for kings and popes. This is the absolute creme de la creme. These are the rock stars of the cooking world. I mean, 100 years after Martino, one of the successors, Capi, writes a cookbook that is the best-selling cookbook in Italy for 200 years.
Well, books in that age were expensive to make, expensive to buy, and very, very time-consuming to produce.
Yes. And if you look at the facsimile, that is clearly not movable type, but at least part of it is hand-engraved.
Yeah.
So, what does Martino... Oh yes, the other thing I need to mention about Camelyne sauce. Over time it moves from a sauce that contains several spices,
Yeah.
to a cinnamon sauce, cinnamon-forward sauce, to a pure cinnamon sauce.
Okay.
If you look at the Spanish recipe, the only spice that's in there is cinnamon.
And does it go from being a savoury to a sweet, or is it savoury all the way?
It's savoury, well, ish. Here we have, and I just realized I've forgotten one ingredient. There's a pot on the hob in the kitchen, Avril, if you could grab that. It's a very small pot. Which is grape must, or I need to find the Italian term because the guy who translated Martino was a translator of poetry, not of cookery.
Okay.
But what he says is sodden wine in some recipes.
Yeah.
And that's fundamentally concentrated grape juice.
Okay.
You can still buy it. I once bought it in Germany where my mother had found a recipe and we went to KaDeWe, Kaufhaus des Westens in Berlin,
Yeah.
which is what Harris wants to be when it grows up. And they actually had it.
Okay.
But it is still a thing in Italian cookery to the day. It's fundamentally what you add to vinegar in order to create balsamic vinegar.
Okay, but you said grape must. I would associate must with the leftovers from wine production. Is that where they're getting it?
No, grape must is the unfermented wine actually. It's grape juice, but when you want to turn it into wine, you call it must.
Okay.
But sodden wine very clearly is concentrated, and sometimes in this country I get grape juice in the Eastern European shops.
Yeah.
Our little one in Tallow didn't have it.
Yeah.
So I ended up reducing half a bottle of port into what little amount we will see in a moment.
Okay. Half bottle of port.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
That's going to be
Cheap port that you don't want to drink.
strong smell.
But this is how strongly I reduced this.
Oh gosh,
So yeah, that was half a bottle of port.
man, that's
And
down to what, like 100 ml, 150 ml?
I'd say 100. And if you want to try, and now I'm going to demonstrate, dear Chris Morocco, I'm now going to demonstrate how one can taste things without using umpteen spoons. You have a red spoon that only goes into the bowl, and you transfer to another spoon.
So this is my spoon for the rest of the session.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
There's a lot of tannin in there.
That's yeah, there is a first brief sweetness and then lots and lots of dry.
That's the tannin from the port, of course.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted, it's like if a grape and a lemon had babies. It's really quite striking.
Yes, the thing is, this is a hack, of course, because I couldn't get grape juice and it is not the same. The port might actually add more interest to it, we will see in a bit.
That is really powerful, and there's only a drop in this, guys, and it's such a hit of flavour, and as you say, tannin, big time.
Yeah. So we start off with, Martino says 2 to 3 slices of toast. I only have a very little blender. Even having the 2 slices of toast here is probably too much. But you soak them in wine, which is going to proceed to do in some cheap Chianti. And while this slides towards gravity, I shall put this to the side and let it soak.
Okay.
And our trusty little blender. Now, again, this is something you'd make in mortar and pestle, really. Martino says pound the raisins. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to add a little bit of liquid, because I think this would simply kill our little blender.
Probably.
And here we go. Okay, we need to add a liquid.
Okay.
Part of that will be the wine that's in here.
Yeah.
But this is also one of the thickening agents, so it's kind of doing both. We need to note that in the Middle Ages, sauces were always thickened with bread. As you heard in the conversation with Pat in episode 2, the roux is an invention of the 17th century.
Okay.
So the whole usage of flour didn't happen. It was always bread. And then cooks can argue about toasted bread or simply using up stale or whatever. And
can I ask a slightly side question? What about using egg to thicken?
No, have never seen.
Okay.
The whole usage of egg is, we throw egg into something, usually hard-boiled egg. The only thing, actually, I'm wrong, custard.
Okay.
Martino has custard, and we've seen custard in other manuscripts, but that is the only one that I can think of. Now, that's not a major focus of what I've been looking at. As we progress in this show, I think we might come back to that.
I have heard of a Tudor recipe in England using already hard egg yellows
Yes.
to thicken a savoury sauce, but that's only just one, and it was a not an early Tudor, but a sort of mid-Tudor reference.
Yes.
So
It would be interesting also, definitely worth looking at. English cookery is not my forte, that's really my wife.
Okay.
I've mostly been focusing on Italian. But it's definitely worth having a look at. And yes, I know Martino has a custard, very nice custard too. Slightly savory with parmesan in it. So, the other thing is, you want something that makes the whole thing tart. Right, counteract especially the sweetness from the raisins.
Yeah.
But even the ones that are only bread-based have either wine or vinegar.
dude, that reduced port is going to bring in some tart. Let me tell you.
Yes, but it's also interesting is this very period ingredient, which is verjuice, or in the Germanic countries sometimes called agrest. And I'm actually going to do this
Oh,
and let you try carefully. This is quite sour.
do I use my spoon or just the glass?
Just the glass.
That is quite sour.
The interesting thing about verjuice and its acidity, and this is the most acidic one I know, I rather like it, is verjuice is the juice of unripe grapes. And what you need to know about that is that the acid that's usually associated with wine is tartaric acid, but that is the acid of ripe grapes. One of the reasons why a wine that is made from grapes that haven't fully ripened because of the year in Germany or whatever tends to pull your face a little bit in, as we just saw in the Good Reverend, is that the juice of unripe grapes contains malic acid from malus, apple.
Okay.
It's the same acid.
Oh, yeah. I can taste that now very clearly.
Now that I tell you, you recognize it, right?
Yeah.
Which is why in England, in period, the substitute for verjuice was crabapple juice. And if you have a crabapple tree at home, make crabapple juice, you have your own verjuice.
Okay, another odd sideways question. In apples, do you have? I presume you have other acids as well as this acid.
I'm actually not sure.
Because the reason why I ask is that there are two appley flavours that I particularly would associate. One with Calvados, but the other with the Breton version, Lambic. And I'd also associate, one particular form of cider having a very Calvados-y flavour and another having more of a Lambic flavour. Maybe the dividing line would be more cooking, eating apple flavours. Do you know where I'm...
I know where you're going. I think that is the species of apples more than the acid. One thing I've learned...
Well, this is the Calvados-y flavour.
Oh, right.
That I'm getting.
That's interesting because this is made from grapes, not from apple.
Oh, yes, but it's that sort of...
That's an interesting one.
More tart than... what's the other thing I'm trying to say? More tart than juicy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know both Lambic and Calvados are strong, but Calvados is more tart than juicy, and Lambic is just more to the juicy side than the tart.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to put a little bit in what Martino says is, and make it sweet or sharp as you like. Which is one of the classic indications in period cookery, much more so than in modern. In modern, you see that's your recipe, that's your ingredients, that's your quantities, that's what you do. Which is, in my opinion, something I like and something as opposed to modern cookery, where you go into a cookbook and you have your ingredients, you have your quantities, and you fundamentally do, at least on the first run through, what the writer desired.
Yeah.
And it also gives you a false sense of security, which I will come back to in a moment.
Right.
One of the cooking shows I watch, Glenn and Friends, he always says, make it your own. And in some cases he even says, I can't tell you how long you need to cook. Yes, cook. Make it your own, use your own judgment. I'm going to write out recipes. I'm never going to include quantities. Because quantities, in my opinion, are a red herring. You don't know. I don't know how strong or fresh your herbs are. I don't know how strong or fresh your spices are. I don't know how good or flavorful or not flavorful your meat is, or your veg are. That is all for you to judge. You stand by the cooker, you taste, and you adjust. Now, I can tell you this needs to be cinnamon forward. But the rest, that's for you to cook.
My daughter always says, like, once she's been told how to do something, she was asked by another family member, do you want me to write that down for you? And she said, I know, I can cook.
Yes, exactly.
My grandmother also once gave a recipe to another family member and said a handful of this and a handful of that, and the person said, "But how big are your hands? How much?" And her answer was, "Actually, you know yourself."
Yes.
And the thing is, if you don't know yourself, you shouldn't be doing it in the first place.
Yes, exactly. I can't teach you how to cook. What I can do is show you the fun of medieval recipes.
Yep.
So, let's pour a little bit of this in. Let's see. And I'll put a bit of the bread in. And I'll put this aside before it slides off the table. This is now nicely soaked. Now, Martino also wants this sauce cinnamon forward. So that's what we're going to go with. And distributing the cinnamon all over the place.
Gonna make the yard smooth. I'm presuming if I can't smell the cinnamon from here, it's not enough cinnamon.
And add a bit more. This is seasoning. There is a bit of a competition in the SCA who can make the most cinnamony Camelyne sauce, and my wife hates cinnamon with meat.
Oh, right.
So she always goes, "Oh my god, Camelyne sauce." But then she does the English cookbooks where you don't have the fruity counterpart that we have here. She was actually quite interested in seeing this. Right. Now, let's add a bit of clove.
All of the clove?
No. You know, with a nutmeg and that amount of clove, that could have interesting psychedelic effects.
Hey, hey, hey. Yeah, you're not going to crush an entire nutmeg in that yolk, are you?
No, I'm not. But what I can actually do is, since I forgot the grater inside, I'm not going to get it. You can actually simply shave nutmeg with a knife.
Oh,
In the absence of anything to grate it with, this works quite nicely, as you can see.
and do you have to further crush that, or is that...
That is.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nice knife, actually.
So yeah, that once I found this out as a student, as you can imagine, in an act of desperation.
Yeah, because students are always consuming nutmeg.
When they were brought up by my mother, they do.
Oh no, that small hole goes to the front.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
And then the other one.
Then the other one. Of all the 4 possibilities, try the 3 wrong ones first. Yeah. Shall we see what this is like?
Yep.
Very red is what it is like, definitely.
Oh wow. Is it supposed to be that consistency? Because it's very, just to describe it, it's not smooth at all. It is sort of bitty.
Partly, what definitely the nutmeg is not as fine as it could be.
Yeah.
I think I'll blend it a little bit longer and possibly add a bit more raisin. It could use a bit more fruitiness, I think.
Okay. That is quite a strong cinnamon flavour.
Yeah.
There's a sharpness to it. And I do get the background. I mean, it's all sitting on the fruity. But like I serve that with something that was really quite sweet.
Yes, it's quite bitter, and especially it's stringent more than bitter, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm not getting enough acid from the verges,
Okay.
and we definitely need more sweet, I think.
Okay.
I mean, the tannin in the port isn't helping, but you do what you do. I was a bit disappointed not to find grape juice yesterday. But let's add some grapes.
Sometimes when I want wine for cooking with, I'll buy some grape juice and brew it out.
Down away.
Yep. Right, first.
Ah! Wow! Victory! I can see why the guys from Salted Food like this little thing. Right, so now let's see what we think. Color has definitely changed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I could see how that would go with meat now. Before, I would have definitely put it with like an overly sweet plum pudding.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I can imagine putting on beef.
Which we shall be doing.
Or lamb, actually, because the I associate cinnamon with lamb.
I might pour a bit more verjuice in, still, or what do you think? But it is round.
No, it's around. That's bang on, I would say.
Cool. Right. Right, guys. If you enjoyed this, please click like. If you enjoy what we're doing in general, please subscribe and ring the bell for when we publish the next episode. Thank you, and bye-bye.
So.